In the old days, before the roads were swallowed by tar and noise, before radios replaced moonlight conversations, there stood a village called Umojoko, balanced between forest and river, watched over by spirits older than memory. The elders used to say, "When a man gives with both hands, he must also learn how to carry the weight." But Obinna did not listen. Obinna was not rich. He was not poor either. He was simply too generous. From childhood, his hands were never closed. If he had one piece of roasted yam and another child was hungry, Obinna would break it unevenly and give the larger part away. When his mother scolded him, he would only smile and say, "Hunger sounds louder in another man's stomach." That smile followed him into adulthood. Obinna grew into a tall, soft-spoken man with calm eyes and a voice that never rose, even in anger. He inherited a small cocoa farm from his father, a mud house with a zinc roof that sang loudly during the rains, and a reputation that spread faster than harmattan fire. If you are in trouble, go to Obinna. And people went. They came at dawn with empty baskets. They came at night with trembling voices. They came with lies, with truths, with tears carefully practiced. Obinna never asked questions. If a man said, "My children are hungry," Obinna shared his harvest. If a woman said, "I need money to bury my mother," Obinna sold a goat. If a stranger said, "I have nowhere to sleep," Obinna made space on his floor. His wife, Nkiru, watched it all in silence at first. Nkiru was wise. Not loud wise, but the kind of wisdom that sits quietly and counts losses before they arrive. She had eyes sharp enough to notice patterns, and a heart patient enough to wait for truth. One evening, as the sun bled red into the forest, she spoke. "Obinna," she said gently, stirring soup that smelled of palm oil and pepper, "a river that forgets its banks will flood itself." Obinna laughed. "My mother used to say that too." "And what did she also say?" Nkiru asked. He paused. "That even rivers dry up." Silence fell between them. That night, rain drummed hard on the roof. Obinna lay awake, listening, not to the rain, but to the quiet fear in his wife's breathing. The first warning. The first warning did not come as thunder. It came as a beggar. He arrived on a market day, when voices were loud and the village smelled of sweat, smoke, and ripe fruit. The man was old, bent like a question mark, his wrapper torn, his feet cracked like dry earth. But his eyes were wrong. Too bright. Too deep. Too knowing. He stood by Obinna's stall and said nothing. "Old father," Obinna greeted, placing his goods aside. "Have you eaten today?" The beggar smiled slowly, showing teeth too white for a man so poor. "No," he said. "And I will not eat unless you feed me." Without hesitation, Obinna gave him food, water, and coins. The beggar ate slowly, watching Obinna the way hunters watch traps. When he finished, he wiped his mouth and asked, "Do you know who I am?" Obinna shook his head. "You are a man in need." The beggar laughed, a sound like dry leaves breaking. "You give as if your hands are not tied to your destiny," he said. "Be careful. The spirits count generosity differently than men." Before Obinna could respond, the old man vanished into the crowd. That night, Obinna dreamed of hands. Hands reaching. Hands pulling. Hands dragging him into dark water. He woke with his heart racing. The village begins to lean. As seasons passed, Obinna's farm shrank. Not because the soil failed. Not because the rain stopped. But because his generosity outpaced his harvest. People began to expect his kindness. Some even demanded it. "You cannot refuse," they whispered. "You are Obinna." Children were sent to his house with bowls before their parents even greeted him. Men borrowed tools and never returned them. Women took food and forgot gratitude. When Nkiru spoke again, her voice was firmer. You are feeding mouths that will one day bite you. Obinna frowned. Kindness cannot be a crime. No, she said quietly. But blindness can be. The night of the spirits. On the night the moon disappeared completely, Obinna heard footsteps outside. Slow. Measured. Heavy. He opened the door. 3 figures stood there, cloaked, faceless, their feet not touching the ground. The council has noticed you, one said. Obinna felt cold crawl up his spine. What council? The council that weighs deeds. Another spoke, your generosity has crossed a line. The third voice was sharp as iron, you have begun to interfere with balance. Before Obinna could ask more, they vanished, leaving behind 3 cowries at his feet. Nkeru picked them up at dawn and gasped. These are not ordinary cowries, she whispered. They are markers. Markers for what? Obinna asked. For payment. Cliffhanger. From that day on, every act of kindness Obinna performed was followed by a loss. A chicken died. A tool broke. A portion of his land sank into the river. Still, he kept giving. And the spirits kept counting. Unseen. Unforgiving. Because generosity, when it defies wisdom, demands a price. And Obinna had not yet seen the bill. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe and turn on the notification bell so that you will be the first to get notified when I drop the part 2 of this video.